As geopolitical tensions rise, we see a major discrepancy to what the mainstream media projects. But today we'll get to the reality, and that is your pension funds are going to be destroyed. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's look at the great news. Time to pop the champagne because the Dow average tops 18,000 on US economy as bonds retreat. Yes, that's right. The Dow Jones hits a new record. We can all celebrate right now because the mainstream media is saying that everything is just fine. This article is out of Bloomberg. US stocks rose with the Dow Jones Industrial Average rallying past 18,000 for the first time after data showed the world's largest economy grew at the fastest pace since the 2003 last quarter. Wow, congratulations for such a success. So we're going to break down today exactly why that's the case. Let's connect in with this right here out of the New York Times. The economy grew last quarter at its fastest rate in over a decade. Once again, this is such great news. We can all thank the Emperor Obama for his good deeds onto us. He said, providing the strongest evidence to date that the recovery is finally gaining sustained power with more than 5 years after it began. That's right. It's able to sustain itself, the recovery, because all we have to do is look at the core inflation rates, which do not include energy and food prices, and then everything is fine with the inflation rates. And if you just look at the stock market price itself and ignore all of the real economic data, then sure, everything looks fine in the economy. They said this, bolstered by robust spending among consumers and businesses alike, economic output rose at an annual rate of 5%. Can you believe how fake these numbers are getting now? 5%? And you know, it wasn't too long ago when they were in the negative 4.6%, and it just immediately switched itself around. And they go on to talk about all the different reasons why things are so good, so rosy, so perfect now. And they're saying that they have been spending more. And you know, it took a little bit of investigation to find this information out, but take a look at this. Final Q3 GDP versus the second GDP revision. Look at how much money people are spending on, what they're spending on exactly. In fact, they're spending more on healthcare right now, and that is in the big lead, as you can see right there. That's the top line, and healthcare is what they've been spending their money on, not on things that actually boost the real economy for the real individual. And then the next in line, which is far behind, is financial services and insurance. And this goes to show you that people aren't buying things for things to support the economy, like houses, for example. They're buying their healthcare. Healthcare costs have risen dramatically since the introduction of Obamacare. We've seen, I believe it was 21 new taxes introduced in some way or another, thanks to Lord Obama's Obamacare. So I'll connect this into what I wrote about in my book, where I said most people are sinking further into debt when factoring in inflation and general living expenses. And I'll add in the fact that the mainstream media does not discuss this, of course, for good reason. In order to overcome this downward spiral, you need to have more income than your expenses. Of course, that's easier said than done. But what I was talking about here is that while people can make money while the stock market is rising, but when the economy begins to head downward, people panic while their wealth disappears before their very eyes. So it seems like everyone is so smart while the economy is being boosted up with all the QE and the low interest rates. But what happens when the economy is down? There is a panic. There are all kinds of laws that are put into place which are completely criminal. We saw what happened when they imposed TARP and how threatening that was to the congressman, and all of the chain events that occurred afterwards. Let's move on right here. Just wanted to show you this link in between crude oil and the S&P 500. Pretty interesting to see how it sort of moves in sync together, but we can see what's definitely happening with crude oil. Can we expect the same for the S&P 500? Only time will tell. So we'll move on here to the Financial Times. I just wanted to mention just one thing from here. Takeover volumes move to the highest post-crisis level. Anything that we've seen before the crisis that is once again taking place is oftentimes worrisome because nothing has been fixed since that time. In fact, the laws have been repealed. Look at what they did with Dodd-Frank. The only semblance of basically some hindrance on these big banks, and they took it away. And that's just going to allow the crisis to multiply yet again, as if we didn't need another reason with everything that they're doing. Mergers and acquisition volumes rising 47% to $3.3 trillion globally. We are seeing the mergers and acquisitions taking place at a rate that is really historic at this point right here. There are many reasons why this occurs. People are seeing a lot of buying opportunities, the mega corporations buying each other out, and we have more of these conglomerates. We have less competition in the marketplace, and we have nothing but really a one single entity controlling everything. That's definitely where it seems to be heading. And I want to go into the geopolitical tensions that are occurring right now. Russia and 4 other ex-Soviet nations on Tuesday completed the creation of a new economic alliance intended to bolster their integration. And of course, they said that, not everything worked out as they planned. But you can see what's happening here is that old enemies are really trying to come together, trying to basically work within their own borders, trying to find alliances against the US, against NATO, against the West. They want to set up their own rules. They want to have their own way of doing things. And of course, the US does not really allow them to do that with the reserve currency and so on. So you can definitely see Russia and China spearheading this movement right now. And that is something to look into in the future. Russia obviously very hot in the news right now. And just connected in with that is this: from Baltic to Asia, east to west, aerial confrontations heat up. This article is out of Reuters. I would definitely suggest you read into it. I'm just going to read the first line, and it said this: from the skies of the Baltic to the South China Sea, a new era of confrontation with Russia and China is pitting US and allied pilots against their counterparts on a scale not seen since the Cold War era. If you want to read all of the different types of geopolitical tension that are occurring right now, this Reuters article will be in the description. As always, I recommend taking a look at it. It will really give you an overview of what's happening right now. But I would just like to say that the geopolitical tension is rising dramatically in recent times. Even within the last year, things have really been heating up with a lot of rhetoric, a lot of saber rattling, but there has definitely been some close calls that we've been able to really practically scratch by in certain instances. And this is what it all comes down to right here. France waves discreet goodbye to the 75% super tax. And this is out of Reuters. And basically, what they're suggesting with this is that, they're not going to go ahead and have to impose this later on. This is going to go away. But we can see that the 75% tax is just one of many that will come in the future. France is the first, but they will definitely not be the last. Every country will form their own way of taxing the rich, the middle class, the poor, whether it's through actual direct taxation, whether they tax through inflation, They could do it through a bail-in, or look for the word levy, because they can use a levy on people, and this is undoubtedly just going to suck the wealth out of the people. They have 100 million tools in their toolbox. None of them support the real economy. And leading up to this right here, out of the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, this right here is talking about the food stamp program, how they misspent over $2 billion, if I remember the statistic correctly. Over $2 billion of the money that was spent on the food stamp program was misspent. And we can see how these programs, the big government, is all they do is waste the money. So when we allow them to take the money, put it into pension funds, and they invest it in these extremely volatile things like the stock market, like government bonds that will collapse at some point in the future, we know specifically what's going to happen to the pension funds. We have seen pension funds evaporated in certain regions. We've seen them being changed for other things. We could see, in fact, government bonds replacing everything, replacing people's bank accounts, replacing everything that people have, and we will have to really take this into account for our real wealth. A government bond is not going to provide us an income. A government bond is simply there to lock our money deep into the future, and that is what they want. They want to hold on to our wealth. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to become an insider. The Insiders is where I give out all my best intel for free, and that is available at themoneygps.com. Scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.